Right, in Alex, there's a topic called solving a word problem using a quadratic equation with rational roots. And it's going to give you a word problem that has to do with length and width and the area of a rectangle. So we're going to need to use the formula for area of a rectangle. And we know that the area equals the length times width. Okay, so it tells us that the length of a rectangle is, remember when you see is, it's like reading a sentence. The length of a rectangle is 1 foot less than twice its width. So length, L, is equals 1 foot less than, that means you're taking 1 away from something, and it's taking 1 away from twice its width. So that's 2 times W. We're taking 1 away from 2 times W. So this is one equation we're going to use, and then we know that the area is 78 feet squared. So we're going to replace A with 78. So we have two equations with two unknowns. So here's one equation, and here's our other equation. Now we want to put these together. We're going to use substitution. This one's already solved for L. L is the same thing as 2W minus 1. So we're going to come over here and we're going to replace L in this equation with 2W minus 1. Something we've done before. So we're just applying the things we know in different situations here. I'm going to times that times W. Now, when we're looking at this equation, we only have one variable left, but we have two of them here. We have this multiplication. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and multiply these together. So we're going to take this W and we're going to distribute it to both of the terms inside of the parentheses. So 2W times W is 2W squared. And then W times a negative 1 is a negative W. Okay, I'm going to set that equal to 78. Now when you're looking at this equation, you want to see that you can, it's a quadratic equation. So when you have a quadratic equation, you need to solve for the variables. You need to get everything on one side of the equal sign and set it equal to, so it's equal to 0, and we can use the zero product property. Okay, so in this case, we're going to go ahead and subtract 78 from both sides. And we don't have any like terms over here on the right side, so I'm going to put it off to the side here. Rewrite what our equation is going to look like, and that's going to be 0 equals 2W squared minus W minus 78. Doesn't matter really which side of the equal sign you move everything over to. I like to keep my squared value, my coefficient, positive, but it's, you can do that either way. Okay, so now we look at this and we need to factor this. So we have our coefficient in front of our leading term is 2. So I'm going to use the factoring by grouping method to factor this. So I'm going to multiply the 2 times the negative 78 together, and that gives me negative 156. And I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to give me a negative 156, but add to give me my middle term value here, which is a negative 1 in this case. So if you don't see what that is, you can go through and list go through this systematically. So 1 times the value, and then can you divide that number by 2? Yes, it's even. So that gives me 2 times 78. And then how about 3? And yes, I can divide this by 3. You can use the little trick here of adding up the sum of the digits here. 1 plus 5 plus 6 is 12, and 12 is divisible by 3. So that tells me that 156 is divisible by 3. That's a quick way to check. And so I divide it by 3, and that gives me 52. And then I can tell I can divide it by 4 because this value is even. So let's see, 156 divided by 4 is going to give me 39. 5, it doesn't end in a 5 or a 0, so I know that's not going to work. 6, I know I can divide it by 6 because I have a 2 and a 3 here. So let's see, 6 times 26. And then 7 doesn't work, 8's not going to work because this is not even. 9, nope. that you can use the same rule I did for 3, and I added those digits up, and it gives me 12. 12 is not divisible by 9, so this is not divisible by 9. That only works for 3 and 9. Okay, I mean, that's the shortcut you use for 3 and 9. Okay, and then 10's not going to work, 11, but 12. Okay, so 12 times 13. And I know that if I have two numbers multiplied together and it gives me a negative number, that means I'm going to have one negative and one positive. But when I add them together, I get a negative back. That means my larger number has to be negative. So I can see that I'm going to use 12 and negative 13. Okay, anytime this is a small number, it's usually going to be a bigger value here. So if you don't see it, or can't figure it out, go ahead and start looking through all the possible solutions, doing it in a systematic way, so you know you've considered everything. Okay, so then we're going to factor this. So we're going to rewrite the 2w squared. I'm just going to ignore the equal to 0 part until I've got it all factored, okay? But it's still there, okay? So I'm going to rewrite minus 12 as plus 12w minus 13w minus 78. So that's what I did. I just rewrote this term, so I'm not changing anything, I'm just manipulating it. Remember, we're going to do that a lot in this class. Now what we're going to do is we're going to group. I'm going to group these two terms together and the last two terms together. Okay, and I'm going to look at the first two and what can I common factor out of both of these? I can take out a 2 and a w. Okay, and so that's going to leave me with a w plus 6. And then in the second terms, I bet I can divide 78 by 13. So, yep, okay, check it out. And you can, and you're going to want to take out a negative 13. And that's going to leave me with w, and a negative 78 divided by a negative 13 will give me a positive 6. And that's what I want here. Okay? So remember, we're just continuing this process, and both of these are w plus 6's, so I'm common factoring out w plus 6 from both of those values. If I take out a w plus 6 over here, it leaves me with 2w. And then when I take out this w plus 6, it leaves me with the minus 13. And there's my two factors. It's equal to 0. Now we set each of these factors equal to 0, so w plus 6 equals 0, or 2w minus 13 equals 0. So I subtract 6 from both sides, I get w equals negative 6. And here I'm going to add 13 and then divide by 2. You're going to get 13 over 2, which is the same as 6 1/2. Okay, now our length cannot be negative, so we can cancel out the negative part of the solution. So our width is going to be 6 1/2, and it's going to be feet. So I'm going to write this. Width is 6 1/2 feet. Are we finished? Nope, we're not finished. They wanted the dimensions of the rectangle. So that means we need length and width. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to substitute back into this equation up here. Length is the same thing as 2 times the width minus 1. And we're going to replace that width with 6 1/2 feet. I'm going to go ahead and write that as 13 over 2 just to make the math easier for me. And I know that 2 times 13 over 2, the 2's will cancel. Leaves me with 13. 13 minus 1 is 12. So this is 12 feet. So the length is 12 feet.